Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This isn't the official welcome. It was just a request from the Council House to let you know that this event is being live streamed. So if you would be kind enough to turn off your mobile phones and devices, that would be really appreciated.
Go! It is my pleasure to welcome you all to our annual civic commemoration of Holocaust Memorial Day. 80 years ago, Soviet soldiers liberated Auschwitz-Birkenau, the largest Nazi concentration and death camp. Auschwitz-Birkenau has become a symbol of horror, of industrialized murder, and what can happen when hatred is left unchecked. When Soviet soldiers arrived, they found several thousand emaciated survivors and the smouldering remains of the gas chambers and crematoria the Nazis had attempted to destroy to hide the evidence of their crimes. Approximately 1.1 million men, women, and children were murdered at Auschwitz-Birkenau. Over 90% of them were Jewish. On the eve of the Second World War, Poland was home to over 3 million Jews. Today, there are an estimated 30,000. About 85% of Polish Jewry was annihilated during the Holocaust, and many of those who survived never returned. But it was not confined to Poland. The Holocaust was the attempt by the Nazis and their collaborators to destroy all Jewish people in Europe. It took place across 22 different countries, with the active participation of some of the citizens of these countries. Between 1933 to 45, the Nazis created more than 40,000 camps, including forced labor, transit, and finally, in 1943, death camps, whose sole purpose was to kill people on an industrial scale. By the end of the Holocaust, 6 million Jewish men, women, and children had been murdered in the ghettos, mass shootings, in concentration camps, and death camps. The Jews and Roma were targeted for total annihilation, but the Nazis persecuted other people too, including disabled people, LGBT plus people, black people, Jehovah's Witnesses, non-Jewish Poles, trade unionists, and many more who didn't conform to Nazis' ideals. Millions of people were affected. The Holocaust shook the foundations of modern civilization. Its unprecedented character and horror will always hold universal meaning. The common reaction to it at the time was to say, this must never happen again. Sadly, of course, it has. Since the Holocaust, genocides have taken place in other countries, including in Cambodia, Rwanda, Darfur, and Bosnia. 30 years ago, on the 11th of July 1995, the Bosnian genocide culminated in the town of Srebrenica, where in just over a week, thousands of Bosniaks, predominantly men and boys, were systematically executed, and over 20,000 women, children, and elderly people forcibly deported by nationalist Bosnian Serb forces, Serbian paramilitaries, and their foreign volunteers. Srebrenica was the culmination and final act of an extensive and systematic genocidal operation of destruction, mass murder, and rape across Bosnia and Herzegovina. In the 3.5 years of aggression against Bosnia, more than 100,000 people were killed. Tens of thousands of women and young girls were raped. More than 2 million people displaced or become refugees, as well as endless destruction of the built environment and cultural heritage. What can we do to create a better future? We can speak up against Holocaust and genocide, denial and distortion. We can encourage others to learn about the Holocaust and more recent genocides, and we can challenge prejudice. Sadly, the forecast of terrible weather for today has forced us to cancel our traditional procession up to the Peace Garden, but I hope you will be able to stay for the public commemoration, which we have relocated here to the council chamber at midday. We will now hear some thoughts from the Deputy Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, for inviting me to speak on behalf of the Leader at this, our civic commemoration event for Holocaust Memorial Day. The Leader has asked me to convey his apologies that he is unable to be here today in person. As the Lord Mayor says, the Bosnian genocide and the genocides that we have talked about already show us that we didn't learn the lessons of the Holocaust well enough. And we need to look at what we can do to create a better future. We can challenge prejudice when we see it, as the Lord Mayor said, because genocide doesn't just happen. There is always a path to it, and each step along that path, there is an opportunity for us to speak out. Hitler came to power in Germany in 1933, and the organised persecution of Jews in Germany began immediately. They were blamed for Germany's defeat in the First World War, accused of profiting and conspiring with foreign powers to ruin the German economy. They were barred from holding public office and forced to wear the Star of David so that all should know that they were Jews. They were banned from marrying non-Jews, and their citizenship was removed, including their right to vote. This culminated on the 9th of November 1938 with Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass. A night of vandalism, violence, and persecution that many have since described as the beginning of the Holocaust. 91 Jews were murdered, 30,000 were arrested and sent to concentration camps, and 267 synagogues were destroyed. 80 years on from the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, many UK communities are feeling vulnerable, with hostility and suspicion of others rising. Anti-Semitism has increased significantly, and extremists are stirring up anti-Muslim hatred. Mainstream politicians are fueling the fire with anti-immigration rhetoric. All it took was a spark and the spreading of a lie for riots to erupt all over the UK last summer, including here in Plymouth. My point is this, that each step we take along this path makes it more difficult to stop. And if we don't speak out while we can, we may eventually find ourselves in a climate where we fear to do so. We cannot afford to be complacent, to say it could never happen here, lest we find it is already too late. The Lord Mayor and Dr. Judith Beckman will now light our Holocaust candle. May it serve as our light in the darkness and a beacon of hope for a better future.
Lord Mayor, Councillor Tina Tui, Deputy Lieutenant, Brigadier Samin Young, distinguished guests. Welcome to the 2025 commemoration of Holocaust Memorial Day that marks two very distinct and tragic anniversaries, as has already been said. The 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau and the 30th anniversary of the conflict in Bosnia. You've just enjoyed listening to a specially composed piece of music by Charlie Hodgetts, an A-level music student at Devonport High School for Boys. Charlie wrote this piano piece after being inspired by both history and research into music written by and about Holocaust composers and victims. He couldn't be with us in person today, otherwise it would have been played live for you to enjoy. But Charlie hoped that the piece you enjoyed listening to against powerful images of the Holocaust captured by Lee Miller was an experience. We thought it timely to share some of Lee's photos this year in light of her life, her art, and her legacy and passion to highlight the plight of the victims of the Holocaust, which most of you know is now in our cinema screens for everyone to enjoy and so powerfully portrayed by actress Kate Winslet. What was, we cannot change. But what is and what will be is different. These are the words of Holocaust survivor Nessie Godin. Since this very special commemoration began, Plymouth Centre for Faiths and Cultural Diversity has been delighted and honoured to collaborate every year during Holocaust Memorial Day with Plymouth City Council to explore exactly that, how we can make things different. Appropriately throughout this year, we're being asked to reflect on the Trust's theme, for a better future. Gandhi once said, "The future depends on what we do at present." Who in this room has been immune to the history of division and hostility, whether globally or, as has been said, right here on our doorstep recently? How do we learn the valuable lessons of the past and strengthen our resolve to challenge hatred and persecution wherever it may rise its head? I look at the faces in the chamber today, and I see that each and every one of us, through our unique roles, responsibilities, talents, have the power to create unity, harmony, and bring people together. But we have to really, truly desire it with all our hearts. And let us share with you a reason why we should really desire this with all our hearts.
Before killing women, the Nazis cut off their hair. Masses of hair were packed in bags. 20 kilos, 22 kilos, raw material for German factories. 7,000 kilograms of hair, 140,000 murdered women. The fascists traded in death. They made fertile kilometers of human bones and delivered them to the Strem firm. They sold hair to factories and the nationalized upholstery industry. Another branch of the same industry. The bandits tore out dentures from corpses' mouths to get hold of gold teeth. All such trophies took up the space of 35 storehouses. Here is one containing spectacles. Even if every 10th inmate wore spectacles, then how many had to be killed to provide this? Clothes and underwear of the dead. Who in Germany was to wear the clothes of the murdered infants? This mass of clothing, this little frock. 514,843 pieces of men's, women's, and children's clothing.
That was a video that was specially made for the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, the 80th anniversary. So today, through a series of reflections, we delve deeper into this year's theme, For a Better Future. And I'd like to invite, again, Dr. Judith Beckman from the Jewish community to share her thoughts. As you know, Plymouth is proud to be home to the oldest Ashkenazi synagogue in Europe. Judith is a key member of the community here and a popular Plymouth Center for Faiths and Cultural Diversity faith speaker. Her family are Orthodox Jews as far back as can be traced, and her forebears came from Poland and other places. And Judith's father was a tailor right here in Plymouth. Wasn't a tailor?
No, my great-grandfather was a tailor.
That counts.
My father was a lecturer in physics.
Welcome, Judith.
Right, well, we're still commemorating the 80th anniversary. So 80 years ago, where was I? I was a toddler in Chingford, which is now East London. So how come I was here in England by 1945 safe? I mean, London was being bombed, and that's because Hitler didn't invent anti-Semitism. My antecedents came from Poland, Lithuania, Moldova, escaping the anti-Semitism of the Tsarist Empire. They came, some of them as early as the 1860s, to be safe. This country welcomed them. And I am so proud of what my family contributed to this country after they were welcomed here. So, however, the whole family did not escape. My grandmother, who was born here in 1889, she was the 11th child, and the only one born in this country. Her eldest brother stayed behind in Moldova, and he and his entire family disappeared. After the war, my father's parents, my grandparents, came in 1905 with other members of their family, but not all. After the war, my grandfather found a cousin in a displaced person camp and brought her over to Manchester. All of my antecedents ended up from these various places in Manchester, which is how they got together to be my family. This cousin, the one survivor of the rest of the family that had not come over to England, she was quite young. She'd been in a concentration camp. But what is important to me is she did have the same surname as my grandparents. Many years later, I was taking my nephew to Cambridge. My brother sadly had died the year before, so I took him. I couldn't go at the right day, so we went a little early, and he had all his stuff in cartons, trying to find, and he had arranged for the Jewish Centre in Cambridge to look after his stuff until he could actually go there. And there was nobody there waiting for him, although he thought there was. So we were waiting outside, and his boxes were all labelled, and another young man, a student, came by, and he saw his name, and he said, "Oh, that was my grandmother's maiden name." He was now a medical student at Cambridge, and he was the grandson of the rescued cousin. Amazing. So we have contributed to this country. And I think we should all remember, everybody who comes here wanting rescue, they will contribute to this country. We should welcome them as our family was welcomed.
So as we said, we're commemorating the 30th anniversary of the atrocities in Bosnia. In 1992, Bosnia declared independence from Yugoslavia, but this was resisted by the Bosnian Serb population, who wanted Bosnia to be part of Greater Serbia. In July 1995, Bosnian troops captured the town of Srebrenica. In just a few days, as has been said again, but repetition is always good, 8,000 Bosnian Muslim men and boys were murdered. The genocide in Srebrenica became the largest incident of mass murder in Europe since 1945. Approximately 100,000 people were killed and 2 million people displaced. A memorial gravestone in the city bears this moving description. We pray to Almighty God, may grievance become hope, may revenge become justice. May mothers' tears become prayers. That Srebrenica never happens again, to no one and nowhere. And moving on to other parts of our planet. In 100 days in 1994, approximately 1 million Tutsis and moderate Hutus were murdered in the genocide in Rwanda. Often, killers were people that they knew, neighbors, workmates, former friends, sometimes even relatives. Frequent visitors to the Peace Garden on Plymouth Hoe must have seen the memorial plaque in honor of those who lost their precious lives in Rwanda. But today, Rwanda is emerging. It's an emerging community that's rising from the ashes and is indeed proving that there can be a better future. Let me introduce you to Reverend Osei Entavuka. He's no stranger to most of us. He's the Director General of All Nations Ministries and a survivor of the Rwandan genocide. He moved to the UK well over 20 years ago. And of course, to most of us, he's known for the wonderful work that he does with the homeless, drug users, alcoholics. And he's already known to a lot of us in this room for the volunteer work that he does, taking medics and experts to Rwanda and other parts of Africa. Please welcome Reverend Osei to share his reflections.
Thank you. She said, my name is Osei Entavuka, survivor of 1994 genocide against Tutsi in Rwanda. I am founder for All Nation Ministries, and I am minister for All Nation International Church. As also the charity, we have a charity giving back to Africa countries. I have a 200 specialist medical who go to Africa 3 times a year to train and training for local doctors. I have asked to speak today about forgiveness and reconciliation. In 1994, during genocide against Tutsi in Rwanda, 1 million people was killed simply because they are Tutsis. Myself, I was beaten many times before genocide actually started. From 1992, I was a refugee 3 times in my own country. In 1994, I lost my family, my mom, my dad, uncle, sister, especially my wife. Her whole family was killed lively, put in the toilets, lively without kill them. After genocide, also I lost my business. From 1994 to 1996, my heart was filled with anger, hatred. My plan was to seek revenge and those who killed my family. I can't do anything. I was distressful. I was actually I was asking myself why I am still alive. I never died. Because I was looking at the life, it was going to be hard for me. But 1997, I have a chance to meet the person who killed my family. When they was coming back from refugees, where they was in the Congo, Burundi, when I met with him, we talked. Actually, that time I had the power to kill him. But I forgive him in the presence of 100 people. I told him that I forgive you. Without forgiveness, Before, my heart was filled, angry, hatred, but from that day I forgive him. The peace started to come back in my heart. Actually, the forgiveness is not for offender, that was for myself. After I forgive him, my life started to come back. I started my business again. Everything was going well. Rwanda was very hard after genocide. Everything was destroyed. Nothing was working, no money, nothing. But unity, forgiveness, reconciliation has built Rwanda again. Today is a country, actually the best country who has the peace in Africa. Best country who's clean in Africa. Reconciliation, unity, reconciliation for Rwanda focus on constructing the Rwanda identity as well as balancing justice through peace and security in the country. Different measures has been taken by the Rwandan government to achieve the goal of and the victim living side by side in peace. Today, it's not me only who forgive Rwandans. You found people, they are living together. Those who kill and those also who was offended, they are come back together in unity. The problem we have for identity, actually that problem came from the colonialism when they come to measure our nose. When you have a long nose, you are Tutsi. When you have a big nose, you are Hutu. And the division starts from there. That was come from Belgium. Rwanda today is in peace. And other miracle happens in the genocide. I lost my son. Not that he was not die, because he was visit somebody in the night before genocide started. When he got to visit someone, the genocide started. I never see him again. They told me he was killed together with my mom and the dad. But after a month and a half, I found my son. It was very hard to speak because there was killing people. He was there, see what's happening. But today, he's a man who has 3 children and is speaking. And is here in Plymouth. Thank you very much.
I mentioned earlier that Reverend Osei takes medical experts over to Rwanda. But during the Nazi regime, medical experts became part of a cleansing program. They signed their approval for euthanasia of the elderly, the disabled, children with Down syndrome and cerebral palsy. 250,000 innocent lives were lost in this way. People with disabilities didn't have a voice during the Holocaust. And many, many opportunities were lost by not harnessing the talents of these amazing individuals who could have been contributors to a better future for everyone. Today, we're learning a bit more about improving accessibility in most of our infrastructures, in our buildings, on our public transport, in our town planning. So for this part of the program, we're going to do something a little bit different. Because I want to introduce you to one of Plymouth's movers and shakers, an incredible young man, Greg Pemberton, who is going to talk about how Plymouth can be even better, how Plymouth can have a better future if it harnesses the talents of people who may have different abilities to the rest of us, but nevertheless have a lot to contribute to the future of our city. Greg.
Thank you. So, as Arazu said, my name is Gregory Pemberton. I have a rare condition called hypophosphatemic rickets. It was found during wars and basically whenever there were deficiencies for pregnant women affecting the bones, the bone growth, and it impacts the legs and how they bow when a child would grow. And in 1999, I was diagnosed at a year and 10 months old. And as a filmmaker, I studied here in Plymouth. I thought maybe what would the future look like if it were accessible to everybody. So people would be able to leave their homes, even if they were severely disabled or impacted by fatigue and disability, by using robots who are controlled by the person who is at home or otherwise sick, like these ones up here, so that they wouldn't become isolated from their communities and still feel an integral part of whichever communities they are from, so that they don't become isolated, because community is an incredible part. And as a disabled person, I feel like that's one of the most important things to be part of. The use of safe spaces for any kind of accommodations, like fidget toys or ear defenders, would be encouraged, and anyone who needs any kind of accommodations could learn more about the people that use them or use them themselves in a safe space where there would be no judgment. The accessibility of buildings would be checked by other disabled people and many others who use them to make sure that they are accessible for the heights of doors, windows, accessibility ramps and bathrooms, more than ever. Our healthcare system would be better if everyone who had a suspected condition or who was diagnosed could optionally be paired with somebody who had that condition, so that they would know to not feel so alone. There would be support, feedback, and especially for mental health and well-being of patients, then there would be someone to turn to, and the care team and the doctors would be learning alongside the patient for the future of medical care. one of the biggest things today just to get here was the transport. So how would transport work in the future? I would hope that everything, especially the buses and the trains, would be level boards. So whether you have a pram or a small child, or if you use a wheelchair, crutches even, that everything would be disabled accessible for everyone to use it. And I know that Plymouth is significantly ahead with the emphasis on green travel. What I would love to see is more accessibility for wheelchair accessible bike attachments for wheelchairs. It's amazing that we have electric bikes, but if anyone wanted to do the same for their own wheelchair, that costs £2,000 just for that attachment that goes on a wheelchair. That is not fair for anybody that would want to become healthy or use it for recreation like everybody else has a chance to do. So in that future, that better future, I would love to see level boardings on trains, as I mentioned before, and it would be accessible for everyone so that everybody can get on with their day. Even the airplanes, and we have Plymouth Airport up there, nowadays they have technology for the seat to be removed so that a person could use their wheelchair as the airplane seat. But in this beautiful future, I would like to see that as an industry standard so that travel would not be restricted or stressful for anybody with any kind of accommodation. And for a better future in general, I would like to see more compassion, understanding, and accessibility, because if that is there for the disabled people of the world, then it can be an accessible, inclusive future for everybody. Thank you.
I think Greg looks very comfortable in this chamber. I think we might be hearing his voice a bit more from now on. Thank you so much, Greg, for that wonderful contribution. Moving on, we move on to the fate of the Gypsy Roma community. In Nazi Germany, black people and Slavic people from Poland and Russia were considered inferior and happened to live in areas that needed to be annexed by the German expansion. The Roma and Sinti communities were particularly targeted, and 500,000 innocent people lost their lives. Those lucky to survive were used as guinea pigs in experiments or sterilized. All because they were seen to be racially inferior. For the next minute or so, I'd like to invite everyone to reflect on a silent film that we're going to share. It's a film of Roma children at a Catholic children's home in Molfingen in Germany. Shortly after this film was taken, the children that we see were deported to Auschwitz-Birkenau. And most of these children were then brutally murdered. So most of these children did not make it. And I wonder, during the silence of watching the film, I wonder if we can all join together in remembering their beautiful souls with a lot of love.
all sunlight is starlight. In the not-so-distant future, when all those branded criminal in their own skin by stars on their chest will be stars in the sky, pinpricks of light to guide wayfarers home. I see it now, out there in the pale pink sunlight. Tomorrow's dawn will be here before we know it. But our children, who have only known the light, will see no stars. Telescope in hand, we must show them that all sunlight is starlight that makes the flowers grow from seeds that took root in the soil years ago. We are the gardeners to that legacy, to the peaceful garden the stars never got to see. Humanity is stitched in stardust and fragile sunbeams. We sail this light to our children. For a better future, building bridges, not walls, we whisper this promise to our children. Cradle freedom like a newborn child, we sing this lullaby to our children. O stardust child, you are the future. You are brave, you are loved, you belong. As sure as breath becomes air, becomes voice, becomes song.
It seemed very fitting to come towards the end of this year's commemorations with the voices and talents of our youth. We're thinking and reflecting on a better future, and what better future have we unless we put our destinies in the hands of our young people. So a huge thanks to our young poet laureate, Frankie Baldry, for that beautiful poem which she wrote specially for today. And very shortly we're going to meet another one of our youth who has written and composed a special piece of music in honor of these occasions. So Will Wooler, again an A-level student, did some family research and discovered that he had Jewish heritage. And not only did he come from Jewish heritage, but that heritage had a long line of musicians in his family ancestral background. So we're going to hear a 10-minute piece of music that Will has composed for today, and he's going to play the clarinet live to the backing track of his composition. I think you'll agree that from what we've heard, especially from the younger members of the contributors, but from all our contributors, that I hope you feel that the future is bright if we all work together to create a better future, but that our future is in the hands of our young people. We must all surge, but I think the youth must soar, and I'm sure that they will soar. So before Will plays us out, as is tradition, we will end this year's commemorations with a chanting of the Kaddish, kindly offered by Dr. Joe Bard. I'd like to thank you on behalf of Plymouth City Council and Plymouth Centre for Faith and Cultural Diversity for your attention today. Thank you to our wonderful contributors for sharing reflections and thoughts. My Lord Mayor, thank you for your hospitality. As is tradition with PCFCD events, especially during Holocaust Memorial Day, I'm going to leave you with the immortal, now immortal words of our much-loved Holocaust survivor and inspirational speaker, Solly Irving, who said, "Try to create a better world than the one I had to endure."
רחמים שייכים במוימים המצאי מנוחון חיינו תחת כנפי השכינו. במעלויס קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר כי המסיחים. אס נשמויס אחינו ואחיותינו, אשר נשפכתם כמים, ושעבדו מפני חמאס המציק, בארצויס תחת ממשלת גרמניה. אנו בעל הרחמים, הסתירם בסייס כנפיך לעולמים, וצרו בצרו החיים את נשמתם, אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבם, ונאמר אמן.
frankly, when I was told it was my time to come and say thank you, I was a bit overwhelmed, because this has been such a moving and disturbing morning, and so beautiful that I don't quite see how I can contribute. That such appalling things can happen, overwhelm me. But what we can do is get together and fight for a better future. Thank you for coming, and thank you for having me.
I hope you'll join us for some refreshments in the reception room, and I hope that most of you will be able to stay for when members of the public arrive for a shorter public commemoration that starts at midday. But thank you so much for being with us today, and enjoy the refreshments.
Sorry, if people can remain seated until the Lord Mayor has left with the mace. Thank you.
Say